Let us bow our heads for a word of prayer. Father, in the name of Jesus, we thank you once again for being in your presence. Thank you for your love, your joy, and your peace. Thank you for allowing us to be in your presence one more time. Thank you for these, your people who are here today to study your word. Bless those who wanted to come, but just could not make it. And Father, in the name of Jesus, bless those who are working this morning as well as we prepare these baskets for those who are in need. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so we are now in Joshua chapter 4, and we're going to see if we can finish it today. But as we go back to our review of Joshua itself, we're learning that the people, this book really deals with faith, the faith that you need to stand and believe God. Chapter 1 talks about Abraham's faith. Chapter 2 dealt with Rahab's faith. Chapter 3 and 4 deals with the people's faith. That's what we found out, right? We started last week with verses 1 through 7, I think. We finished that, and now we're going to continue to see what did the people have to do to show their faith. And we said one thing, they got to believe God. They got to believe God that Joshua is their leader. So God is going to do some things to help them understand that Joshua is their leader, right? He's going to do a miracle for them. And so let's look at Joshua 4 and 8. I'll be reading from the New King James Version. As we pick up at Joshua 4:8, it says, "And the children of Israel did so just as Joshua commanded, and took up 12 stones from the midst of the Jordan, as the Lord had spoken to Joshua, according to the number of the tribes of the children of Israel, and carried them over with them to the place where they lodged, and laid them down there." The key point in verse 8 is this, where he says, "And the children of Israel did so, just as Joshua commanded." Stop right there. So Joshua is the new leader. You got to understand where we are. Joshua is the new leader. So they're doing what God has commanded the new leader. You have a lot of problems with new leaders today. As a matter of fact, people don't respect the new leader-elect. He didn't even get a chance to do nothing yet as the president. We're talking about President-elect Donald Trump, and people are protesting. They're upset that he was elected, but what's going on is you didn't even get a man to try yet. He's not even in office. He hasn't done anything yet. But people are just so against him being the leader, but that's what the people have chosen. But now, I heard a preacher say it this way, listen, you can't keep judging him based on his current character and his past. He's the president-elect now. Now, you got to wait and see what he does. And then you judge everything that he does. And you know what's going to tell about who he really is? It's the first 100 days of his presidency. There's a lot of things he has to do. Right now he's picking his cabinet. But once again, this is a person that the nation picked. So if the people get upset, a few people are upset, that's okay. But now he's the leader, and the Bible tells us to do what? Pray for our leaders. Now let's turn that to the church. Sometimes some churches have been blessed to be around for 100 years. The pastor had been around 100 years, but the church has. So what happened when, let's say, that pastor was there at least 30 to 40 years, and he dies, and you got this new preacher to come along? Some churches don't know how to make that transition either. But this verse says that the people did what? They obeyed Joshua. Joshua was the new leader. They knew Joshua when he was young. But once again, Joshua at this point is the oldest, because everybody older than him dead. Joshua and Caleb were the only two men that left Egypt from originally when God delivered them and made it to the promised land. Everybody else is younger than them. So once again, most people looked up to them at that point, but did they really look at them like Moses? Not until this example, not until this miracle of the crossing of the Jordan River. Yes, sir.
The only thing I hate about people, even though I'm not in love with Trump, but it is what it is.
Yes.
But they're trying to figure this man because he don't have any knowledge in the political
history,
in the army or service, and they think this guy. You don't know what God planned for this man to make because he don't have it. So it surely might be not the way you go kill, and maybe they ain't gonna work out with him. You know what I'm saying?
That's right. He's not swayed by politicians. Because he's not a politician. That's why people elected him. He's not a politician. They want to break up that monotony of politicians getting into office and don't do anything. You know what I'm saying? You got politicians, yeah, I promise you this, I promise you that. And when they get there, they don't do it. They don't do what they say. They only say what they have to say to get elected. And once they get elected, the history is nothing is being done for the people. So that's why people wanted that kind of change. They wanted, of course, he never ran an office. Of course, he never held office. People want change. They said, well, maybe he would surround himself, and I think that's what he's doing now, with people who do know. I always remember my mother's pastor, not the one she currently had, but before Pastor Walker became pastor of Oakland Avenue, they had a pastor who was there, the original pastor, Reverend Wilson. And they used to say this about Reverend Wilson, who had probably maybe a high school education, if he had that. But they said he would say this all the time, if I can't do it, I guarantee I'll get somebody in here who can help me do it. You see what I'm saying? So if I don't know something, I'm going to find somebody who do know about it and who's the expert in it, and they're going to train me, or I'll get them to teach you. You see what I'm saying? So that's what a cabinet is for. A lot of people don't understand that the president don't do anything by himself of the United States. He has to have a cabinet, we have a Senate, and we have a House of Representatives. So all of them have to agree before he can get anything across. So once again, he has to have a good cabinet of counselors, of advisors to him. He has advisors, because he's like, you're probably thinking every day, I don't know what in the world I'm doing. But guess what? I got this advisor who's been around for 20 years at Capitol Hill. I want him in my cabinet. Okay, I got, who used to be governor? All right, you want to be, okay, you're in my cabinet. All right, see, he's picking people who have the experience and who were successful in what they've done. I'm going to have them advise me, because I don't know, well, all I know is business. I know how to build a building. I know how to do that. I'm a professional at that. I can do that very well, but now we have to see if he's going to be humble enough to bring those advisors in and listen to them. So that's what we're going to find out. Look at verse chapter 4, verse 9. It says this, chapter 4, verse 9. He says, then Joshua set up 12 stones in the midst of the Jordan, in the place where the feet of the priests who bore the Ark of the Covenant stood. And they are there to this day. So Joshua did set it up. At the first glance, this seems to say that Joshua built his own memorial, but no. Joshua did what Joshua asked him to do. It appears from this scripture that the chosen men of the 12 tribes carried 12 large stones into the water and left a memorial in the midst of the river. So looking at verse 10. Now let's go to verse 10. Chapter 4, verse 10. So the priest who bore the ark stood in the midst of the Jordan until everything was finished that the Lord had commanded. There it is again. That the Lord had commanded Joshua to speak to the people according to all that Moses had commanded. Joshua and the people hurried and crossed over. Once again, now we got Joshua. He says they listened to Joshua. When Joshua said it was time to cross, they went over because Joshua said it was time to cross. So that is until all the people had passed over the Jordan. He said, come on, y'all gotta listen to me. Now in Joshua chapter 1 and 2, chapter 1 verse 2, there was a command that Moses said that the new leader will lead them across the Jordan. In Deuteronomy 31 and 7, it says, and which Moses by divine direction had given Joshua in charge to do what God has commanded him to do. So all the people hastened across. Now we go to verse 7. Let's go to verse 11. And it came to pass, I'm going to read it from here, New King James Version. Verse 11 says this, Then it came to pass, when all the people had completely crossed over, that the ark of the Lord and the priests crossed over in the presence of the people. So it says, it came to pass that after the people crossed, who crossed next? The priests crossed. They had to cross because God ordained it so, right? Look at verse 12. Now here's another great example here. And the men of Reuben, the men of Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh crossed over, armed before the children of Israel, as Moses had spoken to them. So, wait a minute. So I thought all of them had already crossed over. It says that the men of, and I'm looking at verse 12, and the men of Reuben, the men of Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh crossed over, armed before the children of Israel, as Moses had spoken to them. So what is he saying? He's saying this, that it says, starting at the beginning of verse 12, and the men of Reuben. So the tribe of Reuben, the tribe of Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh said, what? Let's go back to Joshua 1. When Joshua, back in chapter 1, when they first crossed over, when God gave them the promised land, Moses said that Gad, Reuben, and the half tribe of Manasseh will get their inheritance on one other side, right? On one side of the Jordan, and then everybody else will get theirs on the other side. Well, they have split and they divided themselves on one side, and it was true that the half tribe of Manasseh, the tribe of Gad, and the tribe of Reuben did what? They pitched on the other side of the Jordan. So when it was time for the rest of the people to cross over, guess who had an army ready to fight anybody that was going to go against those Israelites who had did what? Crossed over. So guess what God did? He said, yeah, listen, I got an army for you. Don't worry about crossing over. Don't worry about somebody protecting you. I have your own army is going to protect you. You got a whole army on the other side of the Jordan ready to protect you, right? Let's see how large this army was. Look at verse 13. About 40,000 prepared for war, crossed over before the Lord for battle to the plain of Jericho. On that day, the Lord exalted Joshua in the sight of all Israel, and they feared him as they had feared Moses all the days of his life. Go back to verse 13. How many people? 40,000. He had 40,000 of the top tribe of Reuben, tribe of Gad, and half the tribe of Manasseh. 40,000 men protected the people as they crossed. So paint this picture to you. The 40,000 were on both sides of the hills as the people were in that Jordan going across. So they were watching as the people was crossing the Jordan, so nobody else could do what? Attack them. Nobody could destroy them, because God had blessed them with this large army to protect them from being destroyed. That is an amazing, amazing thing. But one of the greatest amazing things is verse 14. On that day. So on what day? The day that Israel crossed that Jordan, the day that they believed Joshua, that day, it says this, on that day, verse 14, the Lord exalted Joshua in the sight of all Israel, and they feared him as they had feared Moses all the days of his life. What will it take for the people in America to respect Trump? All of the people, because some of them do respect him now. It would take something that the people wanted and couldn't get from another leader, but they get from this leader. It's like, oh man, he's not that bad. You know what I'm saying? He did help bring down taxes. Oh man, he really good. He did do this. So watch this. When we talk about Joshua here, why does it say in verse 14 that God exalted Joshua in the sight of Israel, and then that the people feared him? Does this mean that they were trembling scared of him? What kind of fear is this? When he says they feared Joshua. Was they literally scared of him? What kind of fear were they of Joshua?
I think it's the kind of fear that they wasn't kind of like godly-like in a sense. Because Joshua had faith in our Lord and Savior Jesus to do what he had to do, where they couldn't really kind of deal with that in the sense they had a faith to do.
So their fear was more of a reverence, not a scared fear, a reverence fear.
Yeah.
We respect, a respect type of fear. We respect you so. As the leader, we're not going to do anything to go against you. So that's the kind of fear that he was talking about, and the kind of reverence that we should have for our leaders. That was, yes, sir.
But all this that we read before that Joshua did with the Israelites crossing the Red Sea.
Sure did.
Why should they have fear now? Because this next crossover they get ready to do a battle with this land. They should have faith in Joshua. All he done brought them do and done for them.
Right, but the first one was Moses. They were under the leadership of Moses, remember? So they believe, you got to think in their mindset, it was because of Moses that we crossed the Red Sea. We have faith, even though Joshua was with Moses, but he was his, his right-hand man, but he wasn't a leader. He wasn't the main leader. It was Moses who was the main leader. So now it's Joshua's turn to be the main leader because Moses is dead. And so now God is going to do the same thing for Joshua like he did for Moses. God did that big miracle with Moses, crossing the Red Sea. God's going to do this big miracle for Joshua, crossing the Jordan, which caused the people to do what? Have respect. Have that fear. We know God with Moses, or we know God with Joshua. Man, he allowed Joshua to bring us across the Jordan River. So yeah, that's exactly what that means. It's a respect. Look at verse 15 and 16. Chapter 4. Then the Lord spoke to Joshua saying, verse 16, command the priest to bear the ark of the testimony to come up from the Jordan. Right? Let me read that again. Then the Lord spoke to Joshua saying, command the priest who bear the ark of the testimony to come up from the Jordan. Let me give you something. This is the first time it's called the ark of testimony. It doesn't say the ark of the covenant. It says the ark of the testimony. So what do you think he's talking about here? Then the Lord spoke to Joshua saying, command the priest to bear the ark of the testimonies of Jordan. Then verse 17, Joshua therefore commanded the priest saying, come up from the Jordan. So what is he talking about here? Did you know that it was Joshua, their fear and reverence of Joshua, when Joshua commanded the priests who bear the ark of the testimony, or the ark of the to come up from the Jordan? They followed Joshua so well that the first command was what? Priest, you stand in the river and let everybody come. Right? That was command number 1. Command number 2. So yeah, you stand in the river. Command number 2. Now that the people have already crossed, people, I want you to cross the Jordan. The water's going to be on both sides. Cross the Jordan. Command number 3. Now this is how meticulous it was. Now, priest, I want, according to the Lord, I want you to move. Come out of the Jordan. I want you to cross. Those priests did not cross until Joshua said it was time to cross. They didn't move until Joshua said it was time to move. Now watch this. What does that mean about leadership today in the church? The church vision is given to who? The pastor, right? So the church shouldn't move until who moves? To the pastor moves. That's it, the pastor. If God has given the pastor the vision, the church can't go no further than the pastor. I don't care if people are jumping up and down, why he ain't doing it? Well, if he's not going to do it, you can't force him to do it, right? So the church can't go no further than the leadership of the pastor. And once members begin to understand that, they will see it. When you get your bulletin today, you'll see what I'm talking about. We got some changes we're going to make in 2017. It's in the bulletin. So I want you to read that. Make sure you read the bulletin. We're going to have our meeting, our leadership meeting for the men next Sunday, right after church. We got some major changes that we have to make. But you'll see it in the bulletin today. But anyway, so just like with Joshua, it's like with us. We need to make some major changes. We got about 15 minutes. Do not let me go past 10:10. Well, is that clock right back there? Yeah, but anyway, I will try to look at my watch too as well. Okay, yeah, look at that. Okay, now we on that was verse 17. 16. Okay, 18. And it came to pass, when the priests who bore the ark of the covenant of the Lord had come from the midst of the Jordan, and the soles of the priests' feet touched the dry land, that the waters of the Jordan returned to their place and overflowed all its banks as before. Did you hear that? Let's go back there to verse 18 again. And it came to pass, when the priests who bore the ark of the covenant of the Lord had come from the midst of the Jordan, and the soles of the priests' feet touched the dry land, that the waters of the Jordan returned to their place and overflowed all its banks as before. The miracle was, when the priest stepped into the water did what? Stood up on both sides. Just like the Red Sea, right? And the people walked across it. So when Moses gave the command, not Moses, when Joshua gave the command after the people crossed, those priests were still in the water. And had he not told them they weren't, okay, everybody cross, I guess we just gonna go ahead and cross. They didn't move until who said move? Till Joshua said move. Everybody, why you got us still in the water? You know how we do. Man, we said, man, look, they've been gone out the water for 15 minutes. How come they did not complain. And Moses, I keep saying Moses, but when Joshua said, okay, priest, now you can come out. When they came out, verse 18 says they did, what happened? The water went back. The water went back. Could you imagine what would have happened if they didn't listen to Joshua? It's like, man, listen. Hey, Johnny, ain't you tired of standing here? Maybe he went to sleep or something, right? Look, we got the Ark of the Covenant in our hand. Listen, we ain't no fools now. This one looks like it's about to close on us any minute now. Come on, who with me? Who with me? All right, let's go. As soon as they would have tried to move, guess what was going to happen to them? The water would have came. The water would have came and got rid of them because they were disobeying who? Disobeying the leader. So let's bring that to the church. Okay, so if God gave the preacher, the pastor, the leadership to be the under shepherd, then nobody should go any further than what he says, right? So if I came up with a training program for the deacons that last 7 years, then that's what it's going to be. Why we got to be here for 7 years? How come we can't do it for 5 weeks? Maybe a deacon after 5 weeks. Maybe associate minister after 2 months. People want to come up with the plan instead of, no, the pastor said it's 5 years. 5 years. Man, I know some pastors, I know some associate preachers who don't preach, haven't preached in 3 years. And some people say, well, he got all those preachers. The preacher he can let some of them preach. Listen, over at Great Emmanuel, he got about 20 or 30 associate ministers. 20. And he preached, Pastor Shear preached every Sunday, unless he out of town. And then when he out of town, guess what? He done brought in a guest preacher. He got all these associates. So I'm thinking, okay, why he got all those guys and he don't even give them a chance to preach? Because guess what? He got them doing something else. This is the way he runs his church. That's his church. That's the way he runs it. No, y'all gonna run all of the health ministries. Y'all gonna do all the baptisms. You're gonna do all the weddings. You're gonna do all the. I'm not doing that. You're gonna do all the weddings. You're gonna do all the funerals. You're gonna do all. Y'all run it. You're gonna do the Sunday school. You're gonna do the. I think he does do Bible class himself when he's in town. But they run everything else. Anything with ministries or deacons and preachers doing it. And when I noticed, when we were with them, I noticed how it works for them because of the size that they are. It probably wasn't like that when he first started. I remember when he was in a house in Highland Park. Turned the house into a church. Because Sister E11 was going there. That's when she was going there. And I used to go like, man, this little church. I mean, his church was smaller than this. How many members he got now? 2,000, 3,000. He about 20-something years old. As far as the church is 20-something years old. But you can't tell me having a small beginning, won't grow into something big. He was faithful with the little. I remember, to go all the way back, I remember when he was in that little church, his wife was the musician. Karen was on the organ. And then if she had to get on, Sherry said, if she had to get on the drums, she got on the drums. She was that bad. Well, she could play the drums too. I don't know if y'all know that girl bad on the drums. Karen's bad on the drums. That's how her son is bad too, but she's just very talented. But it got to the point where as the church began to grow, so see, I was there that first year with them, it got to grow, she became very busy. This is before she started making her solo album. Remember, her sisters had took a break from their album, and so she had the time to do it. But the church started growing, and they had to get a musician. They had to. So they got a musician, then they got the drummer, then they got this, then they got that, right? So everything started falling into place. But what if everybody would have said, oh, man, that musician can't play like Karen. We don't want it. We don't want him. We want her to play. And the pastor got to get up and say, well, no, that's my wife. I don't want her playing. She's not the organist. She only did it to do what? Fill in. Until we get somebody, until the church grew. The church grew. They filled those positions. They had to do what they had to do. What makes us any different? We got to do what we have to do with what we have. Right? If we got to do 2, 3 jobs, if me and you got to go to the bank, me and you got to go to the bank because somebody else don't, then that's what we're going to do. If we got to clean the church, then we got to clean the church. If we got to do it until when? Until God sends people that going to do what? That's going to work. That's going to work in the ministry. That's what it's all about. And then we can't get upset. We may get a little frustrated, but then we just got to keep teaching and keep preaching. But the overall leadership, the overall attitude in the church should be, I'm going to follow the leader. Because I believe that he's following God. See, that's what this verse is saying in verse 18. These people, it says right there, we already read it in verse 17, that the people believed that God sent Joshua as the leader. That's why they followed him. They believed it. Now, we're going to finish up real quick because I only got 10 minutes. Let's look at verse 19 through 24, and we're going to go back. I just want to read it. Then we're going to go back over the verses. Let's finish this chapter, verse 19 through 24, and we're going to go back to verse 19. Watch what he says. And the people came up from the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month, and they camped in Gilgal on the east border of Jericho. And those 12 stones which they took out of the Jordan, Joshua set up in Gilgal. Then he spoke to the children of Israel, saying, when your children ask their fathers in time to come, saying, what are these stones? Then you shall let your children know, saying, Israel crossed over this Jordan on dry land. For the Lord your God dried up the waters of the Jordan before you until you crossed over. And as the Lord your God did to the Red Sea, which he dried up before us until he had crossed over, that all the peoples of the earth may know the hand of the Lord, that is, that it is mighty, that you may fear the Lord your God forever. So watch this. Verse 19, as we look at verse, let me go to my notes. This is a very powerful passage of scripture as we close with these few thoughts of chapter 19. So, in chapter 4, chapter 3 and 4 showed us their faith, right? And now, watch as it closes. I'm trying to get to verse 19, 18, 19. Okay. So, and the people came up out of the Jordan on the 10th day of the month and encamped in Gilgal in the east border of Jericho. The 10th day of the first month is what? That's around March and April. See, that's it. For us, that's March and April, right? It's called Habib, was the term used by the pre-exilic Jews. Nisan later came to be used by the post-exilic Israel. The timing of the Jordan River crossing coincided, watch this, with the day the Israelites selected to pass over the land. So, you want to know what day it was when they crossed the Jordan? It was the same time period when they picked the Passover lamb. So remember, when they left Egypt, they left Egypt after the Passover, right? Because they ate the meal that night before, that morning, they was out. Because Pharaoh said, get out, because his first son died. They ate their little meal, God put the blood on the doorpost, that was Passover. So, guess what? 40 years later, from that time, when they're about to cross over, it was about the same time, March or April, that they crossed. The same time they came out of Egypt around March and April, they crossed the Jordan, March and April, Passover time. That's what I mean. I just love those statistics. Passover time. But notice, and that was verse 19, verse 20 through 24, and we conclude with this one in verse 20 and 24, 20 through 24. In repeating the story of God's deliverance to their children, the Israelites will bear witness of God's mighty power to the world and uphold the fear of the Lord forever. So when he says, I want you to take these stones and I want you to make these stones as a memorial for the Lord, or to remember what God has done for you, he says, guess what? It is there for us to remember, or for them to remember what God has done for them, so they can always keep God in their remembrance. I'm going to preach a little bit more about that today in the sermon, about remembering and doing what God has called us to do and thanking him. So my question now is, in these last 5 minutes, what do we do as a memorial? How can we, as born-again believers, remember what God has done for us? Okay, well, name some things we can do.
Well, communion.
Communion is one. That's the number one thing, yeah? So let's stop right there for a minute. When you say communion, what is that a representation of, and what are we remembering?
That he shed the blood for us, that he died for us.
Okay.
And that he's coming back.
Okay.
And if we can keep that in the focus, then we'll never forget what we're in this for.
Right. So that's a good point. You said if we keep that in focus, we will never forget why we come to church and why we do what we do.
Right.
That's true. Go ahead.
It's like when you look at the Jews as what happened to them at the Holocaust.
Right.
They have a saying, never forget.
Yes.
And a lot of people say, I can say a lot of people, our ancestors, not ancestors, but our culture today, our people, they might say, well, I don't want to hear about all that stuff. I don't want to see that bring up bad memories of being lynched and all that.
Sister, can you close that door when you leave? Yeah, thank you. Yes.
You know, I don't want to remember all that, bring up the bad memories, but it's not to bring up the bad memories, but it's to keep you focused, because if you stay focused on what happened to you, it won't happen again.
Right.
And I think that's one of the major problems with our people today, is because they don't reflect on the past, and they take the prosperity that they have gained, that they do have,
Right.
and they say, well, this is where we are now. We're still in a struggle.
Right.
You know, the world is still in.
That's true. So that's a good, the number one thing for us as Christians today, they had those stones. And every time those kids that weren't even born at the time they crossed that Jordan, they would see that memorial. Hey, Daddy, what's that about? And he said, well, guess what, son? That's what God brought us over. Don't drag them. See, they tell the story. How they used to be slaves and how God brought them from the Red Sea and then God brought them over to Jordan, to the Promised Land. We have a story to tell today as Christians. As Christians, as African Americans, we have a story. As you just stated, if we don't remember the past, not in a negative way, but in a positive way, that we've been blessed from where we come from. God took us from one point to another point for a reason. Man is the reason why we're in the situation we're in as an African American people today. I'm telling you, we don't want to remember. We don't want to remember that it was only almost 40 years ago. It was over a little over 40 years ago we couldn't even vote. Almost 50 years ago now. We couldn't even vote. And now, a whole lot of, I'm not going to say the majority of African Americans didn't vote, but a whole lot of them didn't. Then my vote don't count. But you got the opportunity to. You have the opportunity to make a change. See, it's our fault for not telling our children. My children are both, my son just turned 18 this year. He voted. My daughter is 25. She voted. But when she was 18, told her, listen, you got to register.
Gotcha.
You know, people died for you to register. People got killed for you to register. You don't register, you don't vote. You need to. If you're not clear about the issues, then look them up. But you gotta, what is your values? You pick the person that equals your values. That's the person you pick. So if you believe that the baby should be killed in 9 months out of the womb, then if that's your value, that's not God's value. I'll tell you that. I cannot vote for somebody that believes in abortion. I can't vote for it. I can't vote for somebody who believes that religion, freedom of religion or freedom of the press and freedom to bear arms could be taken away. I can't vote for somebody that's going to take my rights away. That wants us to be like the rest of the world. I cannot do it. That's my value. Your value system, they say, well, I believe everybody is the same. You know, you can marry your cat, your dog, you can marry the same sex, you can change your sex, you can change anything. I believe that everybody has the opportunity to do that. I want a leader that will do that for me. Then that's who you know you can pick. See, it's just that simple. Whatever your values are, whatever you do, stop looking at personality. See, this is the problem with people with Trump. They look at his personality, and the man hadn't done anything yet. You didn't give him a chance to get in office yet. You protested that he was elected, and the people elected him. That's why we have an electoral college. You might say, well, he didn't win the popular vote. Don't matter. The electoral college picks the leader. And you know why that happens, right? The electoral college was established for that popular reason alone. That some people are so crazy, say, he gonna win by the popular vote. No. The electoral college is supposed to be so well versed in politics and knowledge about where the country is going that they could stop exactly what other people want. See, they saw the change that Obama was bringing. They saw it. So no, we gotta stop this. We gotta stop this change. Therefore, they elected him. But once again, you gotta wait to see what he does before you really surely judge him. Give him that. We'll see in the first 100 days. We'll see. It's going to be all over the news. Yes.
How long has the electoral been in action?
Oh man, it's been a long time. Yeah, hundreds of years. It's been around for a long time. But that's a safety mechanism for the country. Because if a person, I'll give you a perfect example. Guess who won by popular vote?
Hillary?
No, I'm talking about another country. Because he was popular, he won. Hitler. And look what he did. See, had people known his values, had they known that he was anti-Semitic, they wouldn't have picked him. But the reason they picked him, because when he first started, he wasn't saying any anti-Semitic statements. But that was in him. Had they really looked at it, it's like, yeah, this man is kind of racist. He's kind of anti-Semitic. He really don't like. And then it got to the point where he got rid of all religion. Remember? He shut down every Jewish synagogue when he became what they call the chancellor, or whatever they call their little leaders over there. And he was just a painter. That's all he was. He was once again, no political background. Never held office. But once again, people never looked at his friends, his personal background of who he really was before he became. So when, as a matter of fact, people used to say this, when the first 2 years of his reign, they didn't believe that he was doing what he was doing. That's a rumor. No, he's not like that. He's not putting these Jews in concentration camps. No, he's not. That's what people used to say. Then they come to find out, he started taking one country at a time. Yeah, he was sweeping the world. This man took almost all of Europe. On his way to England. He was there next. And we came in as Americans and stopped him in 1944. That's the only thing that saved that whole European. This whole world would be totally different had he won. Totally different. But it wasn't God's plan. Not yet. Hitler was a forerunner of the Antichrist. That's exactly what he was. That's the kind of leader the Antichrist is going to be. We got to remember that. Next week, Reverend Kenny is going to come, and he's going to teach chapter 5 for us. Reverend Simmons, you have chapter 6. So I don't know how long it's going to take Reverend Kenny to do chapter 5. So you just be prepared. If he do it all in 1 week, then you up that next week. If he take 2 weeks, then you just play it by ear. But keep going over your lessons and everything. Oh yeah, why y'all two here, Chloe, turn it off. Well, before you turn it off, let's bow here and word prayer. Then I want you, let's pray first, and then because I need to save that camera. Heavenly Father, in the name of Jesus, we thank you for today, for allowing us to study your Sunday school lesson. Thank you for chapter 4 as we conclude chapters 1 through 4. Heavenly Father, I pray for these next teachers that are coming up starting next week. Lord, give them what you want them to have. In Jesus' name, amen. Here,